The Russian Red Scare continues to dominate the political news, and the latest assumption that 13 Russians indicted by Robert Mueller for identity theft and wire fraud drove a big political wedge between Americans is absurd, to say the least. Americans were divided over whether or not colonists should seek independence from Britain. Americans have been divided over whether or not slavery should be abolished. Americans have been divided over civil rights for emancipated victims of slavery. Americans have been divided over whether black people and women should have voting rights. Americans have been divided over segregation. Americans have been divided over education. Americans have been divided over abortion. Americans have been divided over gun control. And Americans are divided over whether a few Russian bots and trolls influence millions of American voters to vote for or against Hillary Clinton, whose campaign worked directly with a super PAC that spent over $1 million on pro-Hillary social media trolls. After failing to show any real so-called interference or meddling in the 2016 U.S. elections, or to show that the Trump campaign worked directly with Russians, the liberal corporate media continues to assert that one of the most disliked politicians in modern history only lost to perhaps the second most disliked politician in modern history because of Russians. Who knows why these so-called news outlets that are really more so about pushing opinions rather than reporting news continue to push this deceptive narrative. Perhaps the same reason these same outlets gave Donald Trump over an estimated $6 billion in free media coverage to drive ratings and therefore make money. While Fox News leads all outlets in ratings during January of 2018, the next highest rated shows are from MSNBC, which is a highly partisan network and the biggest facilitator of the Russian red baiting, with Rachel Maddow leading the narrative. The problem with cable news today is that it isn't really news. It's partisan propaganda pushed to appeal to one camp or another of divided Americans who were politically divided long before the 13 Russians decided to engage in frivolous shenanigans online. This has been Scotty Reed of BTR News reporting. Support independent media today by giving a tax-deductible donation to the Black Talk Media Project, which has been providing public digital media since 2008.